Welcome back to the Festival of DAM 2022. I'll hand back to your conference chair, David Lipsey. David, over to you.
Thanks so much. And I still get to say good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on where you're calling in from. And welcome back to our final session. The title of this session is The Future of Brand Experience, the role played by DAM and PIM. Yesterday, in my opening remarks, I talked about the borderless state of content. Content moves around in so many different facets and locations. And our colleague, Barbara Jenny Wilson from Coty, has had the opportunity to develop a lengthy perspective on this mysterious borderless phenomena called content and the many roles it can play. Barbara, thanks so much in putting this presentation together. And I'm going to turn this over to you, and I'll be back to join you and everyone who sends in their questions in a little while. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to present here today. This is a presentation that was originally planned for DAM Europe. I think it still applies, given that it was just a few months ago. And over the next 20-30 minutes, I look forward to sharing my personal thoughts with you as to why I think DAM and PIM are so very important in terms of what it means for the experiences that as a brand manufacturer, as a brand owner, we want to create. Why now? How we can make it work in terms of based on my personal thoughts. And I'll also share some experiences that I had along the way. First, I want to share a little bit about Coty. Can you show that this works here? Voilà. Coty as a company was founded in 1904 by a gentleman called François Coty. He was a bit of a pioneer back then. Perfumes were big floral bouquet assembly of scents, essentially. And he decided to do something else. He decided to go with a single scent, the Rose Jacqueminot. It's described as a very pure rose scent, which had instant success in Paris originally. So that's where Coty's has been founded. And over the years, the company has grown. We are headquartered across New York, Paris, and Amsterdam. And today, our CEO, Tsunabe, is reviving this pioneering spirit around really driving a very different or a very powerful vision of the future as being for us to unleash every version of beauty, to bring kindness to the world of beauty, to be fearless in showing ourselves. So that's what Coty is about. My journey in Coty has been quite an interesting one. I've been in the world of content for a while, just like David said. Yeah, so it's been about 14 years I'm spending around content, and just like all of our marketing platform, MarTech platforms have evolved from there. So has my experience in this space, obviously not to that level of scale. I started mostly around the create side, where I supported design functions and agencies to work on campaign creative and making sure that we coordinate this process, 360 view, all touch points reviews, review and approvals, all that kind of stuff. And then into the area of how do we actually store this? How do we ensure lifecycle management? And metadata was a big theme for me for many years as well. And over the last several years, there has been a decided stronger focus on the concept of distribution of this content and the usage, and how do we get insights on this content? And that is really also reflected in the current strategy that I apply when I think about content platforms and my work in Coty today. So around ensuring we have technology and tools that powers the content process from the beginning to the end, and making sure that we're focusing on making it simpler, faster, and cheaper, because there is a lot of growth in that space to lose time, lose money, have a lot of different varying pieces of content floating around. And ultimately making sure that it works, right? So this is, we're still in the business of selling something, and content needs to support that aim, right? So let's not forget that concept. So that's around how I think about content platforms. And we know that content over the course of the last 2 days, these platforms and DAMs have evolved, PIMs have evolved to be more like DAMs. DAMs have more PIM functionalities as well. There's been a lot of growth on platforms that are offering both, right? That are combining the offer in this. And so for me, I'm going to share now in terms of why I think it's so important to have actually 2 separate entities, a DAM and a PIM, that can support this, what's happening in the future. Essentially, brand experiences are going to become co-creations in the future. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper as to what I mean with this. There are 2 elements that drive this. One is what we call the creator economy, and I'm going to talk about TikTok. And, you know, TikTok is not just a new Snapchat or Vine or whatever came before that. TikTok is a creator platform, and it is aimed at allowing young people to create content there. So ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, is focusing a lot of development activity into enabling people to do that. And that's not just on TikTok. There are a lot of platforms out there that are driving this creator economy. I'm a self-professed gamer. I love to play video games. I play now with my son. He's 9. He's in Roblox all the time. Roblox holds now about 40 million games, because Roblox is not just a gaming platform, it's a game creation, a game developer platform as well. That makes it very easy for youngsters to actually develop their own little games. The ones that are being played regularly, right, obviously have some more sophistication behind it, but there is a lot of interest from young people, some Gen Z, millennials, to express themselves. And these new platforms allow them to do that. They want to have a say, right? I say they because I'm not part of that generation. And I can see that this really drives a new type of economy that brings this forward for us. And so this happens, right? And as a brand owner, what this actually means for us is that there is now a whole host of content out there that we might not be aware of because we don't have line of sight to it. But we're also, and that's more important maybe, we actually don't control, right? Other people make content about your brands, and you might, you know, until recently you could have said, oh, I'm going to close my eyes to that. But more and more, this is becoming impossible to ignore the fact that there's just this mountain of content that is talking about your brands or using your brands to a certain extent without you potentially knowing or understanding how you want to use that and how you want to drive that. So that is an important component of what's going to happen in the future around content. And the other one is around how retailers think about their future, right? The pandemic happened, e-commerce has spiked massively, and latest since then, do all of the big retailers, the grocers, the you know, anybody where you're going to buy certain things, realize that they, in the online world, need to compete against Amazon or, you know, the Chinese counterparts. But Amazon has 25 years experience knowing how to sell things online. And retailers realize that they have a competition that is very hard to compete against in this online retail space. So what is a retailer to do, right? How do you differentiate yourself? You cannot win this by changing your price and lowering your price. Amazon matches prices within a day or hours. So it's really, price can no longer be a differentiator to help a retailer how they're selling things online. So one of the elements that I think will continue to matter a lot more and that retailer will focus on is a differentiation through their shopper experience. So how you buy on a Target or Walmart is fundamentally different, right? And the retailers will drive that, not to an extreme, but they will drive that in requesting more content from you as a brand owner with brand stores and special events, etc., that require specific content just for them to differentiate themselves against, you know, the next seller down the street or a click away. And with that, if you come back to the view of the brand owner, if you have a global operation, that means that you're going to be requested to create content for all of your different key retailers across all of your markets, right? So this is what I consider means the content explosion, right? We have a lot more content that is being created by folks that want to be co-creations around your brand, your experience, and retailers requesting a lot more customized content just for them so that they can differentiate the shopping experience against their biggest counterpart, which is most cases Amazon. So that's about co-creations and the content explosion. Then the next two buckets would be around shopping experiences. So more and more, it becomes a 24/7 available shopping experience, the way that you engage with a brand. And that is driven by two things. So one is already that during the pandemic, right, we have had a massive growth of e-commerce, but D2C D2C websites have literally exploded. We have the growth of quick commerce, right, has gone fully global. With these quick delivery, order, you have it in 20 minutes. We have marketplaces. We have the rise of social commerce, right? Makes huge inroads as well. We have these new shopping apps as well. That's like maybe a bit more like a marketplace, but the number of touch points where you as a brand owner are supposed to be present to be able to harness the various ways of how a consumer engages today has just gone exponentially up, right? So this touch point expansion, it really means that you need to find a way of providing the same kind of shopping information, same kind of shopping experience, through 100 different endpoints. And so, doing this in a automated and smart way, it becomes very, very important. The other one is around the buying experience. So this is a trend around that every brand experience becomes a buying experience. And there is this concept of, if you talk to luxury designers, it's all about the brand experience, right? At the same time, attention spans are dramatically reduced, and a lot of these touch points drive a very quick connection, right? It's not something where you are 25 minutes exposed as you're going into a physical store, right? So it's much shorter. And so there is a big drive to be able to monetize that very quick engagement that happens on any kind of ones of these touch points. And, there are companies like Shoppable who literally is their business model to help brand owners do that, right? And capitalize and make every experience, every touch point, a shoppable touch points, essentially. And that together leads to what I call the syndication explosion, meaning that you will need many more data points, because buying something is different than showing something, right, in order to make the transaction work. And you need to be able to do that across many, many more touch points. So this is more speaking towards a PIM component, right, in terms of providing all the data that is required to create a sales transaction, which is more than just showing a picture on Instagram. So that's where the delineation happens. All right, so we have the content explosion and we have the syndication explosion. And for me, this means that the squeeze in the future comes from both sides, and that you need to be ready for that and make sure that you have a DAM and a PIM that can meet those requirements. And that's also why I believe it's better to have two separate systems, two separate entities, so that you can better manage that squeeze as it comes through. And on the next slide, I will now review a bit what I think can help in terms of being ready for this squeeze, right? And operating in that environment where just on both sides of the fence, essentially, it's going to become a lot more complicated. The first, and that's maybe too simplistic to say, but when it's complicated and becomes overbearing, it's important to simplify and keep it very simple. So a divide and conquer strategy is helpful to think about what's the purpose of a DAM, and which corner of the squeeze is the DAM, addressing, and which corner of the squeeze is the PIM addressing, right? In our case, our PIM is also a PXM, and so we're really using PIM as a way to help with the syndication explosion, right? Making sure that the right kind of data makes it across all of the touch points, and the content explosion is squarely in the hands of our DAM to make sure that we have a divide and conquer approach. The next one is around understanding that the future will hold yet more surprises. So this is already, you know, foreseeable what I'm talking about, right? Because we see the trends, we see that coming. There's going to be more. And so it's understanding and taking stock of the technologies that you have today and how you're operating today, and understanding if you're ready for this, right? Are you ready for this situation where you have a lot more throughput, a lot more output, a lot more input coming your way? And how are you taking care of this? Not just from a technology perspective, but also from a process. So user-generated content work, right? And from an organization perspective, do we have enough people? Are they sitting at the right place? Are they skilled enough, etc.? This is all about making sure that you need to push the boundaries of how you're operating today and make sure that you are ready for more, right? So doing more with less or more with the same is part of this considerations that, you know, I encourage everyone to look at regularly. We've just gone through such an exercise to future-proof ourselves, so to speak. It was highly insightful to learn, kind of like thinking through, you know, strategically from an ecosystem how to do that. And then the last one, and I think, you know, at least for me, the way I look at this often comes back to this. It's about building bridges and crossing the functional silos that exist in this space, right? So this is about making sure you have the right work through the people that, you know, you're working with in the DAM space are different than the people that operate usually in the PIM space. And as you embark on this journey and really driving being ready for this future of the brand experience, you know, if you come from the DAM world, you'll find yourself talking to more product folks around PIM, and you'll feel completely outside your comfort zone, not in your designated area. But that is where we need to be, right? This kind of discomfort of bridging between functional silos is very, very important, because that is the foundation of how this can actually work, right? So the tools need to work together, and the teams need to work together. And so bridging between silos, between functions, teams, and work processes, that is a very important piece of work to build that bridge across. So much on making it work. And then obviously, you know, this is all nice. There's often things that don't go so well, right? And I'm happy to share a few things that I have learned as part of this work, and in the hopes that it will help you. One is that as you're trying to connect and make systems work together, it is important that the taxonomy is aligned. I'm sure there are separate breakout sessions that have happened the last 2 days. They were in London as well, in New York. I'm pretty sure taxonomy is becoming so important, because connectivity does not work if the systems cannot talk to each other. And that is one of our key challenges today. We're struggling. We have been finding workarounds, etc. But if you think about how a marketeer thinks about their brand structure versus who operates in DAM, and versus how a salesperson thinks about their brand structure in terms of sellable SKUs and sellable products, which is where PIM is more home at, right? They don't necessarily align if you don't make them align. And I think that is an important element to consider. We walked into this a bit the wrong way around, and we are still paying for it today. So next time around, I'll pay a lot more attention to this. And I hope if you're in the journey of starting this, start paying attention at the beginning. It will pay off very much in the later stages. The next one is what I consider organizational buy-in. In Coty, our PIM journey is fairly young, right? So we're only, 3.5 years in, and it's a very foundational piece of work. And so because of that, there is a lot of stakeholders that you can work with. But in order to really bring everybody together, it's important to drive the right kind of organizational structure and the right organizational home for this. And if you're embarking on this, my advice would be to scatter broader than you think you should go, and then narrow down into the ones that really can help and also are good partners with the ones that are sitting on the DAM side, right? So it's about making sure that you can get as broad buy-in as possible and make sure that in the stakeholder side as well, they talk to each other well, because that will only help, right? We are here about building bridges between the two tools and processes, and which comes to the next one. I'm talking at the end. Another one that I find quite fascinating, and it's a bit more technical in nature, but it has to do with how PIMs focus on versioning of product versus DAMs focus on versioning of content. But if you need to cross the two together, it can technically become quite challenging. And so that is something that, you know, I invite everyone as well to spend a bit of brain power on this, to understand how you would go through this in terms of use cases as you connect the two systems. To make sure that you have a clear line of sight of how you want this to exactly happen, and when it matters and when it doesn't, right? So in which case of a versioning of a product, does the content need to follow or does it not need to follow? So speaking of a phase in, phase out conversation, you know, can you carry the content, the visual content across from the phase out SKU to the phase in SKU? Yes, in which cases, etc. These kind of considerations are important to look at because it makes it easier. Right, the interfaces will challenge and will request that you have solved for this question. So these are the few things that you know, we've spent significant time on as we've embarked on this journey, you know, a while back, and I hope that this can help for all of you. In terms of key takeaways, right? I think the two things that I want you to take away is that there is a content explosion and a syndication explosion that will happen, and that will challenge you as a brand owner or as an operator in this space. Make sure that you have an understanding how you want to address that squeeze with which tool on which side. And the last one is that it is as much a tool and ecosystem like connectivity conversation as it is about connecting the way that people work in your company. Right. It is about connecting the folks that are selling stuff with the ones that are creating new stuff, in a sense, right? And that is just as much a challenging piece to go through as the technology in itself. So that was me racing through my slides.
Barbara, thanks so much. And I think of the canals in Amsterdam where you are when I look at that nice looking bridge slide that you had. So thank you for that.
Indeed. Very Amsterdam looking bridges.
Very Amsterdam looking. Not so sure about the other one, the content thing, but why don't you go ahead and stop sharing your screen and then we'll just take advantage of the cameras. We had a quick question that someone actually sent me a separate note on. You used the word PXM, and that may be an acronym that you know and I know, but we have a lot of people who are from worlds where PXM is not part of their topology. So what is PXM for you and what does it do?
Yes, I'd love to hear your perspective on this as well. PXM stands for me for Product Experience Management, and this denominates tools that are focusing not only on creating a record of your products, right, in terms of a database of all the data about your products, but about also how you're sharing that out. Right, and that's probably very, very important. In Coty, we're using Saucify, which is one of the leading PXM platforms as well, and that allows us to actually say our PIM managed syndication because it is part of its remit to drive experiences out. So there are also a syndicator of product information, not just a database of product information.
Yeah, it's got a little more liveliness to it in a way. So
yes, exactly. It moves data. It doesn't just. It's not just the storage of data, essentially.
We had a question come in, and I'm just going to look to the right, and but I've got the questions are over here on my right. Did you have, when you were looking at PIM and DAM, were you looking at systems that contained both, or was it always PIM was separate from DAM, and that's how we went about looking at the coalescence between the two?
Yeah, transparently, when we made the decision in Coty and when we made the decision previously at my previous company, right, that space was not so well developed, right? I think that the the rise of truly dual entities that can really have both a good DAM and a good PIM functionality was not there, right? So I think that really happened over the last 4 years, where, I mean, I think I was 4 years ago, I think I've heard of one, and now I think there are quite a few more, and good ones, right? So definitely I would recommend everyone to look at that, particularly if you don't have a huge diversity in terms of brands and markets. Then it's really like, if you're operating just within the US, then I think it makes a lot of sense to drive to look at the more consolidated tool structure.
Yeah, I think that's a very accurate and an accurate answer and good guidance. There are times when we'll say that that combination can make sense, and other times the nature of both are such and the scale of the enterprise that it's not going to work out. And I think it's more, what are our goals, and not a technology decision that should drive that, certainly.
Indeed. And I mean, in often cases, right, the DAM has more heritage in a company, at least the ones that I have seen so far. PIMs tend to be somewhere far off behind SAP, you know, in the obscure corner, right? And so I think as the economy has changed a bit, right, and the way all these dynamics we talked, PIM has come much more to the forefront of how this is important and enabling. And so, yeah, you need to really make these choices yourself if you want one tool or two, or connected to. I think if you have two, you definitely need to connect them. I think that's maybe a given right now.
And grapple, very much so, and grapple with the taxonomy issue as you outlined. An interesting use of PIM is to pull through information about products, allergens, country of origin, testing, and this shows up in particular in what we call either smart labels or engagement labels, where there's an aggregation, and DAM contributes to this, PIM contributes to this, and provides a very rich opportunity for a singular touch point for a customer who's curious about, does this food I'm eating have shellfish in it? Or, oh, this has wool in it and I'm allergic, you know, wool makes me scratchy. Have you been drawing in from PIM to with an eye towards customer service and the calls that you get about products and allergens and the such?
So not so much. I think the reason for this is more because I think that I'm driving a bit more of a proactive approach, right? So one of the key things that I find is absolutely foundational, this is part of the exciting thing about connecting a DAM and the PIM together, is you get a much more insights around what the retailers and consumers really are asking for. So you really get to have a front row seat in all the things that become important, and it's important. And feeding that back up the chain inside your company in terms of what's relevant, you know, and these things become now, so it's a physical shopping experience, right? You're literally standing in the store and you're looking at your product, you have it in your hand, but you want more information digitally. That's what's physically present on that pack, right? And that is a new component of a digital experience, because previously it was always like, I do digital away from physical. Right? I research before, I research after, not right when I'm there. But, you know, thanks to COVID, the QR code has made a big revival, and this is now all possible. And, you know, connecting all of the content flow together to enable that experience is super, super important. But it's a taxing journey. I mean, we're not ready. We are working towards that. But it is a big piece of work, right? To be able to connect all of the streams together and then enrich that, not just with here are the allergens, you know, but you want to be able to see, like, maybe even ideally a quick video of somebody who reviewed this and said, I did this, I have allergy to wool, and you know, this works. It's actually okay, you know, or what, you know, it doesn't matter. But like, there's so much opportunity for enriching the brand experience at that moment. But you really need to be able to connect the entire ecosystem together in order to.
That's it. It's certainly that's what makes it work. And and I think, and I really like the phrase engagement label, where it is, okay, I happen to be the laundry elf in my family. And I can't stand those international symbols about which one is the dryer and which one's the donut iron. But on an engagement label, I see the laundering instructions.
Yes.
I might see country of origin. And a lot of people are very concerned about that in their clothing. So lots of interesting examples. But the key point, as you said, is it does take tying together a tremendous number of systems to give that moment of interaction with someone who's got a question or a curiosity or
Exactly.
an impulse to buy.
And this is where PIM, like this is where the data that used to sit in PIM really is amplified into enabling a much deeper product experience, right? It's not just about sharing a UPC code, right? Or you know, size and the dimensions of this packaging.
Yeah.
It's about it really enables you to drive a much deeper experience if you work towards that, right?
Yeah. One of the food manufacturers that did this took apart the ingredients and had a whole little subsection about fun things to do with the ingredients with your kids. And it had baking soda or something like in there that lends itself to safe experimentation with food. And it was so clever, but thinking that all through and then making sure the links work, and it's very interesting to look at. One final question as our afternoon here in the States, your evening winds up. You talked about different sources of where perspectives on your products are being shared early on. So we had a question come in about, well, Barbara, what about user-generated content? Do you have an adjudicated mechanism to bring in some of the things that are being said about your products and incorporate that into something?
We do and we don't. So there is often ways that you get to do things that don't really are not supported by tools. And this is how we are operating today. So this is really a very manual process today, and it's not helpful, right? Because you can't scale when it's done manually. And this is also one of the key reasons why we have been making that assessment around how we want to evolve and be future ready, because we see the advent of user-generated content even more so, and we want to make good use of it, right, in a good way. And the beauty industry lends itself so fantastically to that, doesn't it? Right? I mean, it's a no-brainer to go in that direction. And so we're going to spend a lot of focus on this and properly supporting that process. Yeah.
Yeah, the knowledge that a consumer, a fan is willing to share is so remarkable. You know, some of the sports leagues have found great joy in meeting, I don't even know what to call them, Barbara, super fans, but people who know everything about a race car driver, a wrestler, a curling champion, I don't know, and to figure out a way, either through direct work or through having an adjudicated portal, to get the benefit of perceptions or data or history. Some of the studios in Los Angeles have had former employees who are now contributing. Well, you know, my dad ran that ranch where they filmed that Western movie or something like that. And it enriches and deepens, just as you've said through the thesis of your presentation.
Absolutely. The creator economy concept doesn't have to be something where it's only about giving people money for their YouTube videos, right? It's not about that. It's about understanding that there is a whole new level of engagement with brands. This has not ever been seen before, and it can be seen as a threat, but also, you know, in terms of, oh my God, how am I going to deal with all of this? But it is truly a chance, like you're saying, you know, when professional athletes talk to super fans, they learn something about the history of their club, or, you know, things that they don't see themselves, because if you're like this in it, it's an external type of perspective that can be very insightful.
And I think also from a CRM point of view, the fact if we enrich or empower customer service reps, if we do have something other on the other end of those QR codes, we have touched a person who's interested in our brand. And then maybe it's as simple as, hey, thanks, by the way, there's a 25% off coupon coming in the mail or something in the email or whatever. So there's so many possibilities for perhaps assigning some muscularity or some sinew to the relationships that this way of thinking opens up. So,
indeed.
And I know that when next November rolls around, we'll look forward to hearing from you. and hearing how the journey is going and how the bridge is being made. And so on behalf of Henry Stewart and many, many professionals around the world, thank you for putting the presentation together and sharing this snapshot of your journey. Thanks, Barbara.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much, David, for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye.
As we conclude the Festival of DAM, a couple of housekeeping notes. Thank you for attending. Recordings from the event are accessible on the Agenda tab. And of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback about your event experience. Please take 1 minute to complete our post-event survey, which is accessible on the Community tab. I hope to see many of you in person in Los Angeles on March 23rd and 24th, and the other conferences that are on our horizon. Many of you know that I like to end our time together with a little bit of a journey from A to Z, and I'm going to do that and then bid everyone good day. So, dear asset manager, DAM, a beautiful, bountiful coalescence now drawn energetically from a festival and in honor of a geologically holistic, inclusive, just keeping of literally most nearly all organizational pieces and parts and policies quickly retrievable such that we have a unity of a verified, well-documented assets exactly yielding zillions of different tomorrows. So, dear asset managers, from A to Z, thank you for attending the Festival of DAM. Safe travels. Have a good rest of your mornings or afternoons or evenings. Hope to see you again soon. And on behalf of Henry Stewart, this concludes the Festival of DAM.